Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unlock the Middle. It's Sunday night, and Sunday night is the night that we truly enjoy and love so much, not only because we get a chance to expand our capacity as leaders, but we get a chance to reach out across the nation and talk to some amazing authors, some amazing people who do great things and just build our capacity. Chris, my name is Dean Packard. I'm the principal at Charlton Middle School, and alongside of me, I have my good friend and co-host, Mr. Chris Starcheski of Dudley Middle School. Chris, how are you today, my friend?
Phenomenal, Dean. We're ready for a great show tonight, but most importantly, we're 2/3 of the way through our holiday weekend. And by 2/3, I mean there's still a whole day left to rest and recharge and do some final prep as we start to get ready to open up our hybrid model on Thursday in our district. But, it's been a great day. It was beautiful outside today. I must have thrown about 150 pitches to my son as he was working on his catching game. Got to play some serious baseball out there. Caught a little bit of football. Had some disappointing news, though, that the Pats won't be playing this week because of that pesky COVID-19. But that'll be okay for us. We'll find some good things to do tomorrow. You have a good weekend yourself, team?
I did. We had a chance to get up north to see our son up at his college up at Keene State, and had a family gathering, had some dinner. It was a great time. It's always good to see everybody come together, and when mom and dad have a chance to really connect and just make sure things are going well. So we're very lucky. Tonight I've had a lot of opportunity, or today I've had a lot of opportunity to think about our guest tonight. And, Robb is probably one of the best in the business when it comes to, understanding what we do every day, Chris. I mean, he is a middle school principal. He's an author. He's a TEDx speaker, motivational. I mean, he's got everything. He's got the package. Tonight is going to be one of those nights where we kind of just sit back and guide as we listen to the 10-minute principle, and just look at and talk about what it's all about, because it's going to make a lot of sense for all of us who sit in our seat.
Absolutely. So, hey, why don't we just jump on in and get Evan on in here with us, Dean? What do you say?
That sounds great. Bring him on.
All right. Why don't you bring him in? I'll go ahead and give him the introduction he so rightfully deserves.
All right.
Everybody, Unlock the Middle is welcoming Evan Robb, who's presently the principal of Johnson Williams Middle School in Berryville, Virginia. He's got over 20 years of experience serving as a building level principal. Prior to being a school principal, of course, he started out in the classroom where he was an English teacher, department chair, and assistant principal. He was the recipient of the Horace Mann Educator of the Year Award. In addition, the NCTE Commission on Reading selected him to serve on its national board. He's a renowned TEDx speaker, author. He offers inspirational keynotes, workshops, and webinars and ongoing professional development, learning opportunities on leadership, mindset, culture, impactful change, and how to improve literacy in schools. Evan, Robb, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for that really nice introduction, and doing really well down here in Virginia, and really excited to get together with you guys. We're all middle school principals, which is really cool. And so I'm excited about being able to be on your show and have a conversation today.
Evan, I had an opportunity to speak with you on Friday, and I wish I could have spent more than a half hour with you, because we were really starting to talk about things that are really meaningful to our buildings and what we do every single day. But what inspired me most is just your ability to articulate and just move on the fly. And, you were saying some things and what you were doing that just really inspired me. And I've been in administration now for 18 plus years, and at a middle school that I love. And I'm really looking forward to digging in tonight and just talking about you as an author and what you've done and what you've given back to education.
Thanks a lot. Excited to be here.
So, hey, Evan, as we sit down and we think about the 10-minute principle, I think about 10-minute principle, and I'm like, I wish I could just carve out 10 minutes in my day and find time for myself to get myself set. That time happens to be from about 6:10 to about 6:20 a.m. each morning, because we're rolling around. But if you can give an overview to the 10-minute principle in terms of what some vision was behind the writing of it, and then we can dive on in and start talking about the pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I wrote the 10-minute principle, what really motivated me was I was reflecting back on when I was a new principal back in 1999, was when I was a junior high school principal, and kind of reflecting on those first couple of years where I felt that the job was actually running me, instead of me approaching the job with some intentionality or really a strong kind of philosophical base about what I believed in and what I wanted to communicate in terms of my leadership style. So I wanted to come up with a book that encourages people to reflect on what they do, to really find that intentionality. And so the premise of it is that with the little 10-minute chunks throughout the day, you might be able to find some time to do that. And and I agree. It is hard to find 10 minutes, and I'm a principal too, so I understand what that's like. For me, it's typically driving to work. Sometimes it's a little quiet time during the day, but that's pretty rare when you're a middle school principal, and also on the way home. But so again, focusing on intentionality, focusing on time, understanding that either you gain some control over how you use time, or time will absolutely control you. And you'll be in a job where you're just chasing your tail all day long, and you're never making decisions or doing things that are based on what you believe in and what you want to, hopefully what you want to celebrate in terms of your role as an administrator in a building.
So time is very valuable, Evan, as you know, and Chris, as well. And trying to block out, time to get things done and getting our list done every day. It's absolutely, it's insane, and generally speaking, that takes place sometime late at night or early in the morning when we're not interacting with kids. Talk to me about the vision that drove you forward, that you had the book, as you started writing about it. What was that vision all about? And besides the fact of just connecting and trying to make, the time be a lot more efficient. But from your perspective, talk about that vision.
The vision in terms of the book was to create a book that principals can quickly access any section that they want, depending on what they want to learn about. So it's not a book that was written for you to read cover to cover. And if you take a look at the book and how it's structured, you'll see every chapter structured pretty much the same. So you just simply pick the topic, and then the structure that exists in every chapter carries forward in all the other chapters. So if you want to find a 10-minute tip, a 10-minute collaborative opportunity, they're there in every single chapter, and you can dig into that. So basically, you have, what I do is I keep the book on my desk. I want to focus in on a couple things. I just open to a particular chapter, and I can get some tips to help me kind of focus on my day.
It's brilliant. The structure is fantastic. I've got a copy in my office. I've been able to refer to it every now and again. Unfortunately, I haven't been as disciplined at carving out those 10 minutes to really focus. But it's something I certainly do want to get better at, because like you described, sometimes we can feel very reactive in our positions as opposed to being proactive and purposeful and intentional with our moves. But hey, let's hit that first pillar. The idea of vision, the idea of being able to articulate and be steadfast in promoting, the vision.
Yeah. So a couple things to think about vision. Every school that I've ever been to in the United States of America has a really good vision statement. Typically, it's on their website, it's in their faculty handbook, or in school divisions too. If you look at the central offices, they all have great vision statements, but they're not all great. So it gets you kind of thinking about, so if everyone has great vision statements, but that does not seem to be the vehicle that makes a school or a school division great. What makes a school or school division great is the people, and then it's also focusing on the different elements that I talk about within the 6 pillars of leadership within the book, The 10-Minute Principle. So vision statements are important because they paint a picture about where the school wants to be. So it's this future place. It's a place that you may never get to, but it's a place that that you want to be able to paint that picture with staff. And the other thing with vision is not powerful if it's only the vision of the principal. Vision becomes powerful when it's the collective vision of the staff. It's even more powerful when it's the collective vision of the students, the staff, the community, and the families. And then where the magic is when people know it, and when people make decisions that are in line with it. And you guys know too, because you all are principals, so you've gone through the same spring that I went through. So I think back to the last spring. It's a time of really rapid change. A lot of decisions have to be made. We all made those along with other administrators all across the country. But I think the people that came through that the best really focused on making decisions that were in alignment with what the school's vision was, with where the school wanted to go and what the school was all about. Because you never want to make decisions that, you don't want decisions that are diametrically different than a vision, nor do you want decisions that are out of alignment with the vision. So it's important. Think about it as kind of the guidepost for a school.
So one of the hardest things about making those types of decisions, Evan, is getting collective responses from people in the building and, collective stakeholders, especially in times like this when they're uncertain. Sometimes there is a need to be able to take that compass and point it in a direction and try to build that momentum and feedback with it. And, given the uncertainty of where we are right now and the multiple schedules that are out there, and it's hard to get feedback from everybody and make it right. But I can see that how it can attach directly back to a vision statement that your school does have.
Yeah, it is hard to get feedback, and sometimes if it's not done well, it can be disingenuous, and creating disingenuous opportunities for feedback are actually really counterproductive to someone being able to be effective in a principal's role. I would say another thing that I'd want to kind of pose to you all and anyone who's checking out the video tonight is I talked about the vision of the division, the school, and I talked about the power when it comes from a collective nature: students, staff, families, community members. But I don't want to discount a personal vision. Now, what I would say is that the personal vision of the principal is not what you would come into a building and say, this is what I'm about and this is what we shall do. But your personal vision can help you make decisions that are aligned with what you believe in. That kind of becomes your personal vision as a leader and as an educator. And what I would say, and this is where things get tested during difficult times. So let's think about it like this. I would say that for most people, what they believe in is established at a very, very young age. So it's not something that you typically come into when you're out of graduate school. Some of your core beliefs were in you when you were a child. Now they end up getting honed through your life experiences and through your education. But what you believe in is always the same. So you're either in sync with it or you're out of sync with it. So you think about that. So what I'm saying is that what you believe in never changes. You change, whether you're in sync with it or out of sync with it. So when times are really challenging, that is a perfect opportunity to get out of sync with what you believe in, because you move into a very reactionary mode to try to get things done. But if you're aware of that, you can kind of pull back and realize that you need to be in sync with what you believe in, because it will make you more effective as a leader. And then you also want to really try to make the decisions that you make, and the decisions that for the collective school or school division, if you're a superintendent, that they remain aligned with what the collective vision of the school division is.
It's definitely how you grow. There's no doubt about that. Evan, as I step back and think about what you're talking about, and the second topic that we have tonight is called relationships. Mm-hmm. Everything we do as leaders in our business is about cultivating strong, trusting relationships. Talk to us about how you see relationships as being that catapult in order to make all this work well.
Yeah, I think relationships are definitely a foundational element to being able to be an effective school administrator, superintendent, or a teacher. Now, I guess the one caveat I would say before I go any further on relationships is, in some cases, it gets oversimplified to be a larger definer of what we do. There's a lot that goes into effective school leadership. There's a lot that goes into effective classroom instruction. So sometimes on social media, you'll hear things like relationships, real estate, location. But there's more to it. There's a lot more to it than that. But without it, it doesn't work. So the question is as a school leader, what are you doing to help cultivate positive relationships in your building? And are you modeling that and supporting that, or are your actions, working in contrast to that? So it's really important. So let's take it into the classroom level. And what I would say with relationships is there's parallels between the classroom, the building, and the school division. So in an effective classroom, a good teacher, I think you guys would both agree with this, cultivates really good relationships with their kids. But they're relationships that are not compromising the goal of the class. So you can have really good relationships with your kids, but not learn anything. So a class where everyone's just having a good time, they love the teacher, it's fabulous, but no one's learning anything. The best classrooms, those relationships create the opportunities for learning, and then stretching and growing within the classroom. Now, the same thing is true within a building. So if a principal tries to create relationships with teachers and or parents that are disingenuous to what they believe in and what they stand for, then the relationships are false and they don't work well. So the relationships have to be, they have to be in sync with what the principal believes in and what you're trying to accomplish within the building. So I'm a little long-winded, so I'll make it really short. Compromising, making relationships where you're compromising what you believe in to have a relationship will never work well within a building. And it doesn't work well within a classroom either. And it certainly doesn't work well, we're all principals, but if you don't have a reasonably good professional relationship with your central office staff, that becomes very challenging. Or if the principal's central office staff is not really good, it makes it really hard for the principal to be able to create the right culture within the building that's different than the relationship that they're experiencing.
Yeah, it's really true, Evan. And when you summarize it, I liked your example of the classroom where everybody loves the teacher, but they're not learning anything. They're not moving towards the end, but everybody gets along great. We're wonderful together. But our real goal, our real purpose, is to learn and to become better and move forward. So let's tackle the two-way street. Trust, pillar number 3. What are some experiences that you've had to really identify that as one of these middle pillars in your 6?
Yeah, the vision, relationships, and trust, they all go together. So trust in the building is something that takes a long time to build, and it can be destroyed really quickly. Trust in a classroom between a teacher and students, if that's in place, a lot of great things happen within the classroom. Kids are willing to stretch, they're willing to take chances, and grow as learners. Same thing in the building for principal to teachers. If a principal is promoting trust within the building, then that opens up the door for things to happen within the building that require trust for that to occur. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, as a principal, you want to focus your building on any given year on being innovative. So bringing innovation into your classroom. But when you try something innovative, you're going to try something different. And when you try something different, sometimes it goes really well and sometimes it fails. But if you're working on building trust and relationships in your building, you need to be comfortable that if it fails, the teacher doesn't feel like they're getting in trouble. Because if they do, then a message is being sent that will hinder the person to be innovative in their classroom because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. Right. Same thing is true with kids in the classroom. We'll go right back to the classroom example and say, if a teacher encourages kids to stretch and grow as learners, to do something different, and they don't do well on it, and they feel like their punishment is a grade that they cannot recover from, then they're probably not likely to do that again.
True. So
trust has to be worked on all the time within a building. And it is very, very, I think people that don't put a lot of focus in on trying to bring that into a school can have a lot of undercurrents in the building that can be very counterproductive to the culture of the school. People need to feel that they are safe in the building and that they have the trust of the principal to work on and take on the challenges that the building needs to face.
One of the things that Chris and I try to preach within both of our buildings is empowerment of teachers to do what they feel is right to connect with kids. That's okay. We want them to take risks. We want them to experience what failure is. You can't grow without failure, and that trickles down into the context of children's learning as well. So again, when teachers do feel they have that empowerment to be able to do this, great things happen, and all of a sudden traditional teaching goes away, and they start breaking down the door, and they start experiencing new opportunities for growth. So yeah, I agree and that trust, that's worked upon every single day. It's okay not to agree with your principal. It's okay not to agree with a topic, and it's okay to have those type of discussions. But in the end, it still has to go back to what's good for kids and what's good for our school and good for our communities.
Yeah, that's really well said. And so the same thing exists within the classroom. Effective classrooms have learners who are empowered to grow as learners, and effective buildings have teachers who feel empowered also, empowered in their instructional methods, potentially empowered in their ability to have voice within the building, maybe empowered in terms of their leadership, where there's a collective focus, where the principal's a leader amongst leaders instead of the sole person in charge of the building, which would be the old school kind of style of leadership in the school.
Let's take it and go for another example. Go to a higher level here. Let's talk about efficacy in the classroom, what that looks like, and getting to the desired end. One of your pillars. What does that look like from your perspective within the book?
Okay, so efficacy is really a very important thing to have within a classroom, and it's important to have within a building, and it's important to have within a division. So in the division and in the building, the collective whole, thus the name collective efficacy. Within the classroom, someone's efficacy, their individual efficacy that they bring into the classroom, which in the most simplest terms is the educator's belief that they can make a difference for a child. So that has to do with belief, that has to do with expectations, and we all know that kids typically live up to the expectations that we set if they are high, and they are often very willing to live to the opposite also if we set them very low. Now, where it gets a little interesting within the classroom and the building is, what can the principal do to increase collective efficacy and help people preserve a sense of efficacy within themselves and within the building? And there are some things. It has to do with professional development and how learning is promoted within the building. So I'm going to give you a really simple example. When someone, and you guys will relate to this because you do what I do. So, as a middle school principal, we interview teachers, and we're involved in hiring teachers. And what we typically find is when teachers are right out of college, they are so enthusiastic and so excited about making a difference and so thrilled to finally get their first classroom. But a lot of times when people come into the classroom as a first-year teacher, really, the first couple years of teaching, they may have a limited amount of pedagogical kind of skills that they can bring into any given situation within a classroom. So basically, that's a long-winded way of saying they may only have a couple ways to be able to comfortably teach a lesson.
Yeah.
Of course, as we grow over time, we learn how to do it more and more. But what I would say is that if you have a limited amount of ways to teach a particular lesson and kids are not getting it, that challenges your belief in the kids that are in front of you. So then you can quickly move into this mindset that, I don't know, I taught it, I tried my best, they're not getting it, I guess they can't do it, these kids can, these kids can't. And, as educational leaders, we know that we don't deal in a world of can and can'ts. We focus on the word all. And so we want all kids to find success within a classroom. But what I would say is the professional development that the principal brings into the building that increases the instructional skills of a teacher in a classroom, arms them with more skills, more strategies to be able to help kids when they can't get it, and puts them in a position of being less likely to engage or go down that road of conversations that kids can't get it.
Evan, let me jump in for a second, if I could. Talk about efficacy now during remote learning. When you are teaching kids within a household and they don't have the same brick and mortar setting, we talk about desired results, endings, what it's supposed to look like. How much leeway, how much empathy, how much compassion, how much adjustment should an educator have when thinking about this type of situation we're dealing with now?
Yeah, I think the situation is very different, than what life was like 1 year ago. And it is very important for teachers to have a lot of flexibility, a lot of grace, and a lot of empathy, understanding, compassion, all those kind of words that can go on and on. Because we do not know the situations that our families are in or that our kids are in when they are engaging in learning. So all of those elements, including curricular flexibility, flexibility with grading, and giving kids the benefit of the doubt right now.
That's a good transition into the concept of having a student-centered environment. For me, it's a bit more about student-centered focus, but in terms of the environment that we look to set up and structure that really allows kids to stretch and be who they are. Talk a little bit about your experiences with that and certainly how it relates in with the 10-minute principle.
Sure. So we can look at learning environments in terms of how they are structured. So you all can think back to when you guys were in school or in high school, you probably sat at some point or another in a class that, had really nice, perfect rows, and the teacher was in front of the room. So that was a room, and I experienced that too. That was not a student-centered, room in terms of the structure of the room. Now, we also need to think about how our curriculum is structured to meet the individual needs of kids. And I would say right now, and this is certainly true right now during remote learning and hybrid learning, but it really is always true that educational leaders need to focus on access, equity, and differentiating. So access is very important now because some kids who don't have Wi-Fi are not able to access curriculum the same way. Equity. We don't understand, what kids are going through right now, especially if they're learning remotely. And we can understand somewhat through phone calls and things of that nature, but they're not in the classroom. It's simply different.
Right.
Differentiating is incredibly important. So I grew up, the example that I like to share, guys, is, I had a history class when I was in high school, and I thought I was a really good history student because every week the class was exactly the same. So we'd come in and the chalkboard would be loaded with notes, and I'd copy down notes Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, see, you're nodding your heads like you get, yes, you all probably experience this too. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you would write down the notes. Thursday, you play History Jeopardy, and Friday, you take a multiple choice test. And, boom, then the chips fall. Some kids who memorize really well would do really well and get A's. Other kids would make an F. Some kids would be in between. But the next Monday, a new lesson would begin, and it wouldn't matter if you didn't get it or not. But so my experience with history was all fact regurgitation. I hold my little phone here. Every fact that I thought I was so great at memorizing, I can get in a couple seconds on this phone. But my phone will not necessarily be able to tell me how to make an emotional connection to history. Or how to understand how something in history relates to my life. So those are different skills and skills that we need to bring into classrooms today. I am a big believer that education, which is changing now, and a lot's changing now because of COVID, but I think over the last decade or decade and a half, there have been more rapid changes in education, in terms of discussions about instructional strategies, student-centered environments, professional development for teachers, and things of that nature. But I also know, so I give you the example about when we all were in high school and we sat in the rows. What I could say is if you do a Google search right now and you look up a high school classroom from 1920, it won't look that different than some classrooms today. It'll be black and white, and there won't be computers in the classroom, but the kids will be sitting in a row, and the teacher will be right in front of the classroom. But then the other example I could share is if you did a Google search for what a factory looked like in 1920, that factory would look significantly different than a factory looks nowadays, because business, by nature of how businesses operate, they're forced to rapidly change. Otherwise, they go out of business. So, I'm a big believer in educating moving forward, hopefully at a very rapid pace. So we work on preparing kids for the world that they're going to be entering, not the world that we reminisce about and sometimes some of us hold near and dear.
When we think about the pandemic and what we're all going through here since last March, I think one of the real good takeaways we can really reflect back upon is the instructional methodologies and the tools to support the learning that teachers have become better with. Their toolbox, I call it that educational toolbox. And if you have a lot of tools, the learning can become fun. You can connect with all types of learners. If anything, when we pivot back into a regular brick and mortar, I think we're going to be very well prepared to be able to take the instructional methods that we all know and really turn it into something special. And we have to look at it that way as we continue to grow. And as I think about this, and I talk about instructional knowledge, the next pillar that you have that we want to talk about, where does that bring us to right now when we talk about fulfilling your book and what this looks like?
Well, that's a good question. So let me explain it like this. It is very important for the principal to model everything that occurs in the building. So if you want to promote a sense of efficacy within your classroom, a sense of belief, the principal needs to promote that. You want to focus on vision, relationships, trust. It has to be promoted by the principal, because the principal can ruin those things incredibly quickly, but it takes a long time to build them. Now, I am not saying in my book, and I certainly won't say tonight, that the principal should ever be the sole well of instructional knowledge. In fact, I would argue quite the opposite. But what I would say is that if the building wants to have a focus on developing student and teacher agency, people growing as learners, then the principal better do that also. And they better do it, and they better believe in doing it, because again, if you're disingenuous, people pick up on that incredibly quickly. So I'm a big believer that it is important for us as professionals to make sure that we are growing as learners, that we model that for our teachers and for our students, and that we create opportunities for people within our building to be able to grow as learners. And Dean, it's just like you said, when that occurs in the building, that increases the level of collective efficacy within the school. And that's a very positive thing. And so you take it, now I'll take it back to the classroom level and say, let me rephrase that. You will never find a classroom where it's very focused on student agency and kids growing and experimenting and really developing as learners, led by a teacher who doesn't live that.
Yeah.
You just won't find it, and so the other examples like growth mindset. We hear a lot about growth mindset nowadays. So, you're not going to find a classroom where kids are incredibly focused on growth mindset and bringing that into their learning if it's led by a teacher with a fixed mindset. Same thing in the building. The building wants to focus on growth mindset. That's wonderful. Love the work of Carol Dweck, but it won't work if the principal is stuck in a fixed mindset. And then the other problem for the principal is it certainly won't work if the principal talks about growth mindset, but everything they do communicates fixed mindset. And we've seen that before too.
Yeah. So,
so again, what I'm trying to say is all of these things pull together, they all intermingle, and they are all ultimately enhanced by the principal, but it can be completely ruined by the principal if the principal doesn't have a strong understanding of who they are as a person and focuses their job with some degree of intentionality.
Evan, I'm hearing all this, and thank you so much for digging deep into all these topics. We, as middle school principals, we all love our schools. We cherish our teachers. We empower our teachers. We want our kids to feel loved when they walk through the door. What's special about your school, Evan? Tell us something about your school, because I'm very interested to hear about your school and how you make your teachers feel like they're empowered. Your kids are empowered. Talk a little bit about your school. This one's kind of off the cuff a little bit, but I want to hear about it.
I appreciate it. I would guess from the conversations I've had with you guys, probably similar to the schools that you all are focused on. Our building is incredibly focused on students and making sure that everything that we're doing is really for the best interests of kids. We are also focused on everything that I've talked about tonight. But one of the things that I think is kind of unique in my building, maybe a little bit unique, is we hone in on a couple key things that we focus on every year as a staff. And we use that to help drive our school improvement and also build that collective focus within a building. So this year, differentiating, is something that we're focusing on in our building as a staff. But I would say also, our building has we have great parental support. We have a wonderful community. We're very fortunate to have very little teacher turnover. We have wonderful kids. And like every middle school, I think all across the country, really try our best to make sure that we're creating lots of good opportunities for kids through programming and also through the extracurricular activities that make school a lot of fun. I would say one thing that's a little unusual about my building is my building has only had 2 principals since 1996.
Wow.
And I'm one of them. So, we think that's something that helps out a lot in a community, because I think the average turnover for principals right now in America is 3 or 4 years. So people they don't stay in it. And, and I'm, and I know I take it from you guys too, really committed to that job and, all of the complexities of the job, the things that are wonderful and the challenges that come with the job. Because it is a really, really incredible way to have a positive influence on a community, on kids, and be able to empower teachers to be the best that they can be.
But also still grow, Evan, and that's one of the things that I look at. And you've been there for quite a while. And in my building at Charlton Middle School, we've had 2 principals since 2000. So it's I've been there for now this is my 18th year in administration. So you think about it, there's no place like home. It's a great place to be. And Chris now he's going to be you're going into your 4th year, I believe, Chris, where you are, and you're not going anywhere. We love where we are. And there's so much to do in this. Every year you can get better and better, and that's what makes it special.
Yeah, it's a great job. I would say that, and again, what I spoke about when we first started here tonight, that the course that I was on my first couple years, it just never would have worked for me because I got into this rut of being very reactionary and focusing in on the small things versus the things that needed to happen for the building to really flourish and
Yeah.
it to grow.
As we sit down and we think about ways that we try to learn and grow, this is an example of it. Hosting our Unlock the Middle show, being able to connect with guests like yourself, this is a tremendous form of professional learning for us, building our PLN even stronger than it has been locally. We're branching out much more on that national scale now. But what we're hearing from our guests and, from you as an example, are some of our the fibrous elements of our being as educators. They're out there for everybody who's trying to do this job. It's not unique to us about what our values are, what our passions are. There are a lot of other folks out there who share them and who could certainly teach us. And being able to hook in with our Middle Marvels segment, where we're able to showcase talents and abilities at the classroom level. Educators from around the country. We do have a goal to get 50 states represented. So if you have anybody down there in Virginia who'd like to nominate, Evan, please feel free to jump on our website and make a Middle Marvel.
Definitely.
Yeah, but all in all, it's just an incredible opportunity for a conversation tonight, Evan. We want to thank you so much just for breaking this down for us. And I don't have a copy of your book yet, but I am going to purchase one. So let me know, and I want you to sign it for me, and I will actually get it from you directly if I can, if that works out for you.
Yeah,
put it on my desk.
We can work it out.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
I'll mail you a copy. I just got to get your address.
Yeah, that's no problem. But I'll definitely look at it and put it to good use. Again, great conversation tonight. Greatly appreciate your time. As Chris said, we're expanding our PLN every week, and it's people like you that continue to inspire us as well. Because we're doing the same thing. All the oars are rowing in the same direction. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're cultivating relationships. We're supporting, we're empowering, and we're building, and we're looking at what the next level is for kids. And if we do that every single day and continue to evolve our vision, great things are going to happen.
Let me just say this, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you all, and for me to be able to see and to learn from other educators is incredibly valuable for me. It always has been. And kudos to you also for starting this show, because the job can be all encompassing, and sometimes again, it comes down to intentionality. It's like, if you want to do this, you can find time to do it, and if you don't want to do it, you'll quickly find an excuse. And that goes for most things. But but I do believe that as educational leaders, we have an opportunity through social media to be able to share ideas and help others grow and get connected. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and the world's a lot smaller now than it used to be. And the connections that I make, I'm always very appreciative of, and I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you two gentlemen.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Take us home, Chris.
All right, man. Well, hey, Evan, thanks so much tonight for sharing some of the pillars of your 10-minute principle and a little bit about your school down there in Virginia. It sounds like a wonderful dynamic environment. It's a good parallel to both Dean's middle school and my middle school in our Dudley Charlton Regional District. We are pulling in the same direction, and we're all moving towards that pinnacle, whatever that might look like. But hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land, thanks for joining us tonight or watching us on the replay. Be sure to check out our Middle Marvel segment coming up on Tuesday night this week. We've got another special guest lined up, showcases all things great at the middle level. And if you get a chance to check out Evan Robb, he has an amazing TED Talk. I love the point about 2 ways to enter into the swimming pool. I could actually picture you climbing up onto that high diving board, Evan, and it was some vivid imagery as you used to talk through some of the important elements of leadership that you shared with us here tonight. Have a great evening, great week, everybody. And whether you're in school, in remote, or in hybrid, remember, everything that we do is intentionally purposeful to help make kids better, no matter what the environment. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.